The rain fell steadily on a quiet street in New Haven, creating ripples and puddles under flickering orange streetlights. Dr. Elias Kane pulled his coat tighter around himself as he walked home from his lab. It had been a long day of analyzing star charts and running simulations for interstellar travel, a subject that fascinated him but rarely brought excitement to anyone else. His life was predictable, almost monotonous, until tonight. As he turned a corner near an old bookstore, a figure caught his eye. Standing beneath a dim street lamp was a woman unlike anyone he had ever seen. Her skin shimmered faintly, like moonlight dancing on water, and her silver eyes glowed with an intensity that made his breath hitch. She wore clothes that seemed both simple and otherworldly, loose fabric that shifted colors subtly with every movement. For a moment, Elias thought she might be part of some elaborate performance or art installation. But then she spoke. "I returned for you," she said softly, her voice carrying a strange weight, as though it carried memories he couldn't quite grasp. Elias stopped in his tracks, blinking against the rain dripping down his face. "I'm sorry. Do I know you?" Her expression softened, though there was a flicker of sadness in her glowing eyes. "You don't remember me?" "Of course you wouldn't. Not after what happened." "What are you talking about?" Elias asked, taking a cautious step closer. Something about her felt familiar, like a dream he couldn't recall upon waking. Yet, at the same time, she was completely alien. "My name is Syra," she said, ignoring his question. "We met aboard the Ecliptica. Do you remember now?" Elias frowned. "The Ecliptica. That sounds like something out of science fiction. Look, if this is some kind of prank." "It's no prank," Syra interrupted gently. She reached into a small pouch strapped to her side and pulled out a small glowing orb. With a press of her finger, it projected a holographic image into the air between them. It showed two figures floating in zero gravity, one unmistakably Elias, wearing a spacesuit marked with the insignia of an organization he didn't recognize. Beside him stood Syra, smiling warmly, her hair floating freely around her head. Elias stared at the image, his heart racing. He wanted to dismiss it as fake, but the details were too vivid. The way his own face looked slightly younger, the specific design of the ship's interior behind them. None of it matched anything from his current life. This can't be real," Elias stammered, backing away. "I've never left Earth. I work at a university. I study stars. I don't fly ships." Syra sighed, her shoulders sagging slightly. "They erased your memories, Elias. Everything we went through together, all of it, is gone. But I came back because I promised I'd find you again." "Who erased my memories?" Elias demanded, feeling anger rise alongside confusion. "And why would anyone do that?" Before Syra could answer, the sound of footsteps echoed nearby. Both turned to see a group of men in dark suits approaching quickly, their faces grim and determined. "We need to go," Syra said urgently, grabbing Elias' wrist. Wait. Elias protested, pulling away. "I'm not going anywhere with you until you explain what's happening." But Syra didn't hesitate. She pressed a button on her wristband, and suddenly, the world around them blurred. Lights streaked across his vision, and Elias felt like he was falling through space itself. When the sensation finally stopped, he found himself standing in a completely different place, somewhere cold, metallic, and utterly unfamiliar. Where am I?" Elias whispered, looking around in shock. "You're safe," Syra assured him, though her tone suggested otherwise. "For now." As the enormity of the situation sank in, Elias realized one thing for certain. Nothing in his life would ever be the same again. "Would you like me to write part 2 in the same style? Let me know." The ship limped toward the wormhole, its damaged systems flickering and groaning under the strain. Elias sat at the controls, guiding them carefully while Syra monitored the energy readings from her console. Both were battered and exhausted, but there was no time to rest. The Accord ships were still in pursuit, their weapons recharged and ready to fire. "We're almost there," Syra said, her voice weak but steady. "Once we get close enough, I'll activate the destabilization sequence." "What happens after that?" Elias asked, glancing at her. "The wormhole will collapse," she replied. "But it'll take everything we've got to make sure it works, including this ship. We won't have much time to escape once it starts." Elias nodded grimly. He knew what she wasn't saying, that if they failed, they'd be consumed along with the wormhole. Yet somehow he felt calm. For the first time since this nightmare began, he had clarity. Whatever happened next, he wouldn't face it alone. As they approached the swirling vortex of light and energy, Syra initiated the sequence. The ship shuddered violently as massive amounts of power surged toward the wormhole's core. Outside, the entity stirred again, its shadowy tendrils lashing out in anger. "It knows what we're doing," Syra whispered, gripping the edge of her seat. "Then let's not give it a chance to stop us," Elias said firmly. With a final burst of energy, the destabilization process began. The wormhole's colors shifted erratically, its surface rippling like boiling water. Alarms blared inside the ship as the Accord's vessels closed in, firing wildly in an attempt to disable them. "We need to go," Syra shouted, pulling Elias toward the emergency pod, a small one-person craft designed for short-range escapes. "No," Elias protested, shaking his head. "I'm not leaving you behind. Not this time." Syra smiled faintly, tears glistening in her silver eyes. "You don't have a choice, Elias. This is my fight, my burden. But promise me one thing. Promise me you'll live. No matter what happens, keep going." Before he could argue further, she pushed him into the pod and sealed the hatch. Through the window, their eyes met one last time. Then, with a press of a button, the pod ejected, sending Elias hurtling away from the chaos. Back on the ship, Syra stood alone in the cockpit, watching as the wormhole grew unstable. Her body glowed faintly, the remnants of her connection to the entity flaring brightly. With a deep breath, she activated the ship's self-destruct mechanism, ensuring nothing would survive the collapse. Not even herself. Outside, Elias watched helplessly as the wormhole imploded in a dazzling explosion of light. The shockwave sent his pod spinning through space, knocking him unconscious. When he awoke hours later, floating amidst the wreckage of stars, the wormhole and Syra were gone. In the weeks that followed, Elias drifted aimlessly until rescue teams found him. Back on Earth, he struggled to adjust to life without answers, without closure. But every night, as he stared up at the stars, he remembered her sacrifice and the bond they shared. Though Syra was gone, her promise lingered in his heart. Keep going, asterisk. And so, Elias did. He dedicated his life to studying the mysteries of the universe, driven by hope that somewhere, somehow, Syra might still exist, waiting for him beyond the horizon of the unknown. Would you like me to expand or revise any part of the story? Let me know. Elias' heart pounded as he and Syra sprinted through the narrow, twisting tunnels. The sound of their pursuers grew louder with each passing second. Shouts echoed behind them, accompanied by the sharp clang of boots on metal floors. He didn't know where they were running to, but one thing was certain. Stopping wasn't an option. "Where are we going?" Elias gasped, his legs burning from the effort. "There's a hidden exit ahead," Syra replied, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "But we need to hurry." The tunnel opened into a larger chamber filled with strange machinery, panels blinking with lights, wires snaking across the floor, and screens displaying streams of data in alien symbols. In the center of the room stood what looked like a small spacecraft, sleek and angular, its surface shimmering faintly like liquid metal. "This is how we'll escape," Syra said, pulling him toward the ship. Elias hesitated, staring at the craft. "You expect me to get into that thing? What if it's not safe?" "It's our only chance," she shot back, her tone firm. "Trust me, Elias. I wouldn't risk your life unless I had no other choice. Her words struck a chord deep within him. Despite everything, her cryptic explanations, the impossible claims about his past, there was something genuine in her voice, something that made him want to believe her. Reluctantly, Elias followed her aboard. The interior of the ship was surprisingly spacious, with smooth walls and glowing control panels. Syra moved quickly, pressing buttons and adjusting levers. Within moments, the engines roared to life, vibrating through the hull. "We're clear," she announced as the ship lifted off the ground. Behind them, the chamber doors burst open, revealing armed men pointing weapons at the vessel. Shots rang out, energy blasts ricocheting off the ship's protective shielding. Then, with a sudden lurch, they shot upward through a vertical shaft, leaving their pursuers far below. As the ship broke free into the night sky, Elias collapsed into a seat, trying to catch his breath. "Okay," he said finally, looking at Syra. "Start talking. Who are those people chasing us? And why does everyone keep saying my memories have been erased?" Syra took a deep breath before answering. "They call themselves the Accord, a secret organization tasked with protecting humanity from things it isn't ready to understand. When *Ecliptica* disappeared, they covered it up. They couldn't risk anyone knowing the truth, not even you." "And what exactly is the truth?" Elias asked, his voice rising. "That wormhole near Proxima Centauri wasn't just a natural phenomenon," Syra explained. "It was alive, an intelligent entity capable of manipulating time and space. We encountered it during the mission, and it offered us knowledge beyond imagination. But there was a price." "What kind of price?" "Servitude," Syra whispered. "It wanted us to join it, to become part of its existence. Most of the crew refused. You were among them." Elias frowned, struggling to process what she was saying. "If this is true, then why did they send me home? Why erase my memories instead of just letting me stay forgotten?" "Because you knew too much," Syra replied. "You discovered something critical about the entity, something dangerous. The Accord feared you might expose the truth if you remembered, so they wiped your mind clean and placed you back on Earth, hoping you'd live out your days without ever suspecting a thing." "But why come back for me now?" Elias pressed. "Why put yourself, and me, in danger?" Syra met his gaze, her silver eyes filled with emotion. "Because I made you a promise, Elias. When the crew split up, I vowed to protect you, to find you again, no matter what it took. And because—" She paused, her voice softening. "Because I think you're the only one who can help me stop the Accord from making the same mistakes we did." Elias stared at her, torn between disbelief and a growing sense of responsibility. Whether or not he believed her story, one thing was clear: his ordinary life was over. Whatever lay ahead, he couldn't face it alone. "Would you like me to continue with Part 4 in the same style? Let me know." The spacecraft soared silently through the night sky, leaving Earth far behind. Elias sat in stunned silence, staring out of the transparent viewport as stars streaked past like tiny pinpricks of light. His mind raced with everything Syra had told him. The Accord, the wormhole, the mysterious entity. It all sounded impossible. Yet here he was, sitting inside an alien-like ship, fleeing from armed men who clearly wanted him silenced. Syra stood at the controls, her hands moving deftly over the glowing panels. She seemed calm, almost serene, but Elias noticed the tension in her posture. Whatever they were running from, it weighed heavily on her too. "So," Elias began hesitantly, breaking the quiet, "what happens now? Where are we going?" "To find answers," Syra replied without looking up. "There's a place, an archive hidden deep in space where fragments of our mission were stored. If we can access it, maybe we'll uncover more about what really happened to you, and to us." Elias nodded slowly, though doubt still lingered. "And these people, the Accord, they won't stop chasing us, will they?" "No," Syra admitted grimly. They'll do whatever it takes to keep their secrets safe. That's why we have to stay ahead of them." For a while, neither spoke. The hum of the engines filled the silence as the ship continued its journey. Elias tried to piece together the fragments of his shattered reality, but nothing fit neatly. Everything felt disjointed, like trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. After some time, Syra turned to face him. "Elias, there's something else I need to tell you, something I didn't mention before." Her tone made his stomach tighten. "What is it?" "When the crew encountered the entity in the wormhole, not everyone refused its offer," she said quietly. "Some of us accepted." Elias' eyes widened. "You mean?" "Yes," Syra interrupted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I made a deal with it. In exchange for saving your life after the mission went wrong, I agreed to serve it. But I've been fighting to break free ever since." Anger surged within Elias. "So this whole time, you've been lying to me. You're working for that thing." "No," Syra exclaimed, stepping closer. "I'm not working for it anymore. I betrayed it. For you. Don't you see? Everything I've done has been to protect you and undo the damage we caused." Elias shook his head, backing away. "How can I trust you when you keep hiding things from me? First my memories, then the Accord, and now this. What else aren't you telling me?" "I'm sorry," Syra pleaded, her silver eyes glistening with unused tears. "I wanted to tell you everything, but I didn't know how. I was afraid you'd hate me." "Afraid?" Elias shot back bitterly. "You should have thought about that before dragging me into this mess." The ship rocked suddenly, throwing both of them off balance. Alarms blared, and red lights flashed across the cockpit. "They found us," Syra muttered under her breath, rushing back to the controls. On the viewport, 3 sleek ships appeared, closing in fast. Their designs were unmistakably Accord, dark, menacing, and bristling with weapons. "We're trapped," Elias said, panic rising in his chest. "No, we're not," Syra replied firmly. "Hold on tight." With a flick of her wrist, she activated the ship's hyperdrive. The stars outside blurred into streaks of light as they shot forward, leaving their pursuers behind. But even as they escaped, Elias couldn't shake the feeling that Syra's secrets might be the most dangerous threat of all. "Would you like me to continue with Part 5 in the same style? Let me know." The ship emerged from its high-speed jump in a remote corner of space, surrounded by swirling clouds of cosmic dust. The tension between Elias and Syra hung thick in the air, as palpable as the silence that filled the cockpit. Neither had spoken since their narrow escape from the Accord ships. Elias stared out of the viewport, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. His mind churned with questions about Syra, about himself, about the shadowy forces chasing them. But most of all, he wrestled with doubt. Could he trust her? Her confession about making a deal with the entity still stung, leaving him unsure whether she was truly on his side or simply using him for her own purposes. Syra broke the silence first. "We're here," she said softly, pointing to a faint glimmer in the distance. Elias squinted at the speck of light growing larger as they approached. It looked like an ancient satellite drifting aimlessly through space, its surface pockmarked with craters and scorch marks. "What is it?" Elias asked, his voice flat. "It's the archive I told you about," Syra replied. "A relic left behind by the civilization that once studied the wormhole. If anyone recorded what happened to us during the mission, it would be here." The ship docked gently onto the structure's surface, and Syra led Elias into a dimly lit chamber inside. The walls were covered in glowing runes and intricate carvings, pulsating faintly as though alive. In the center of the room stood a pedestal topped with a crystalline orb. "This device holds the data we need," Syra explained, stepping toward it cautiously. As her hand hovered above the orb, Elias spoke up. "Wait. How do I know this isn't another trick? What if this thing erases my memories again, or worse?" Syra turned to face him, her expression earnest. I understand why you don't trust me, Elias, but I swear to you, this is our only chance to uncover the truth about your past and mine. Reluctantly, Elias nodded. Fine, let's see what it shows us. Syra touched the orb, and instantly, the chamber came alive. Holographic projections filled the air, scenes of the Ecliptica crew working together, exploring the wormhole and arguing heatedly. Then came images of the entity itself, a swirling mass of energy that seemed both beautiful and terrifying. One projection showed Elias standing defiantly before the entity, shouting something inaudible. Another depicted Syra kneeling before it, her hands raised in submission. Finally, there was a scene of chaos, the crew scattering, the ship falling apart, and Elias being pulled away by Syra just moments before everything collapsed. Elias watched in stunned silence, fragments of memory stirring deep within him. He remembered flashes of these events now, his voice trembling as he refused the entity's offer, the desperation in Syra's eyes as she begged him to leave, the cold emptiness of space swallowing them whole. It's coming back, Elias murmured, clutching his head. Bits and pieces, but it's not clear yet. Syra stepped closer, her voice gentle. It'll take time for your mind to process everything. But this proves I'm telling the truth. I didn't abandon you, Elias. I saved you. Before he could respond, the ground beneath them trembled violently. A low rumble echoed through the chamber as cracks began to form along the walls. The Accord must have tracked us here, Syra said urgently. We need to go, now. Grabbing his arm, she pulled him back toward the ship. As they ran, Elias glanced over his shoulder at the crumbling archive. For the first time, he realized how much danger they were truly in, and how far Syra had gone to protect him. But even as they fled, one question lingered in his mind. Was she really saving him, or leading him further into a web of secrets he might never escape? Would you like me to continue with part 6 in the same style? Let me know. The ship rocketed away from the collapsing archive, just as explosions erupted behind them, sending shards of debris spiraling into the void. Elias clung to his seat, heart pounding as he watched the ancient structure disintegrate on the viewport. The Accord ships were already closing in, their engines glowing ominously against the dark expanse of space. They're relentless, Syra muttered, her fingers flying over the controls. We can't outrun them forever. Elias turned to her, frustration boiling over. Then what do we do? Keep running until they blow us out of the sky, or until you decide to drop another bombshell on me. Syra flinched at his harsh tone, but didn't look away. I know you're angry, Elias, but I'm trying to keep us alive and find a way to fix this mess. If you'd let me explain. Explain what? Elias snapped. That you betrayed me too. That everything you've done has been part of some bigger plan I don't understand. Yes, Syra said firmly, meeting his gaze, but not for the reasons you think. When I made that deal with the entity, it wasn't just to save your life. It was because I couldn't bear to lose you. And now, breaking free of it means risking everything, including my own existence. Her words hit him like a punch to the gut. For all his anger and suspicion, there was something raw and honest in her voice that made it hard to dismiss. Before he could respond, the ship rocked violently as an energy blast grazed its hull. Warning lights flashed across the cockpit, and smoke began to fill the air. We're hit, Syra shouted, struggling to stabilize the vessel. Elias gripped the edge of his seat as alarms blared around them. What happens if they catch us? They'll take me back to the entity, Syra replied grimly. And you. They'll erase you completely this time. No second chances. The weight of her words sank in. Despite everything, Elias knew one thing for certain. He couldn't let that happen. Not after seeing those fragments of memory, not after realizing how deeply connected they were. There has to be another way, Elias said, his voice steadier now. Some way to fight back. Syra hesitated before speaking. There is, but it's dangerous. The entity gave me a failsafe, a way to sever the connection between us. But using it will destroy the bond I have with it, and possibly me in the process. Elias stared at her, stunned. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I hoped it wouldn't come to this, she admitted softly. But if we want any chance of stopping the Accord and freeing ourselves, we have no choice. She reached into a compartment beneath the control panel and pulled out a small device, a crystalline sphere pulsing faintly with blue light. This is the key, Syra explained. When activated, it'll disrupt the entity's influence over me. But it'll also alert it to our location. Once we use it, we'll only have minutes before it retaliates. Elias looked at the sphere, then at Syra. Are you sure about this? No, she confessed, her voice trembling slightly. But I trust you, Elias, even if you don't trust me yet. For a moment, their eyes locked, and Elias felt a surge of resolve. Whatever doubts still lingered, he knew one thing. He couldn't let her face this alone. Let's do it, he said finally. Syra nodded, gripping the sphere tightly. As she activated it, the ship shuddered violently, bathed in a brilliant blue glow. Outside, the Accord's ships faltered momentarily, thrown off course by the sudden surge of energy. But deep within the void, something stirred, a presence far older and more powerful than either of them could imagine. Would you like me to continue with Part 7 in the same style? Let me know. Elias blinked rapidly, trying to make sense of his surroundings. The room was cold and metallic, with walls that hummed faintly as if alive. Dim lights flickered overhead, casting eerie shadows on the floor. He turned to Syra, who stood a few steps away, watching him carefully. Where are we? Elias asked, his voice trembling slightly. This is where I've been hiding, Syra replied. It's safe for now. Safe from what? Elias demanded, frustration bubbling inside him. And why did you bring me here? What do you want from me? Syra hesitated before answering. I told you, I came back for you. Because we were together once, Elias. You just don't remember it. That doesn't answer my question. Elias snapped. How can I trust anything you say? For all I know, this could be some elaborate trick. Syra sighed deeply, her glowing silver eyes softening. I understand why you're angry. If our roles were reversed, I'd feel the same way. But I need you to listen to me. Please. Her tone was so sincere that Elias found himself calming down, though suspicion still lingered in his mind. Fine. Talk, but start making sense. Syra nodded and walked over to a console embedded in the wall. With a touch of her fingers, holographic images sprang to life. A star map filled with unfamiliar constellations, blueprints of a sleek spacecraft, and symbols written in a language Elias couldn't read. This is *Ecliptica*, she said, pointing to the ship's blueprint. It was sent on a secret mission 20 years ago to explore a wormhole near Proxima Centauri. You were part of the crew. Elias shook his head. That's impossible. I've never even left Earth. My whole life is right here, my work, my home. But not your memories, Syra interrupted gently. Someone took them from you, Elias. Someone erased everything about your time aboard *Ecliptica*. Why else would you have no recollection of something so important? Elias stared at the holograms, searching for flaws or signs of fabrication. Everything looked too real. The level of detail, the precision of the designs. It wasn't something someone could fake overnight. Still, doubt gnawed at him. If what you're saying is true, he said slowly, then why? Why erase my memories? And why leave yours intact? Syra lowered her gaze, her expression pained. Because I wasn't supposed to come back. After the mission went wrong, I stayed behind while they sent you home. They thought it would be easier if you forgot everything. To protect you. Protect me from what? Elias pressed. Before Syra could answer, the ground beneath them shuddered violently. Alarms blared, red warning lights flashing across the room. "They found us," Syra whispered urgently. "Who has?" Elias shouted over the noise. "The Accord," she replied grimly. "The people who erased your memories. They'll do anything to keep the truth hidden." Without waiting for another word, Syra grabbed Elias' hand and pulled him toward a narrow corridor. Behind them, heavy footsteps echoed through the chamber, men in dark suits, armed and determined. "We need to move," Syra urged, her voice sharp with urgency. Elias stumbled after her, his mind racing. Who were these people chasing them? What truth were they trying to hide? And most importantly, why did Syra seem so convinced that he was key to uncovering it? As they ran deeper into the labyrinth of tunnels, one thing became clear. Elias might not remember his past, but whatever it held was worth killing or dying. 4. Would you like me to continue with part 3 in the same style? Let me know. The blue glow from the sphere filled the cockpit, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Elias shielded his eyes as the ship vibrated violently, its systems struggling to handle the surge of energy. Outside, the Accord ships wavered, their weapons momentarily disabled by the pulse. For a brief moment, they were free. But Elias knew it wouldn't last long. "What now?" he shouted over the chaos. "We don't have much time," Syra replied, her voice strained but determined. "The entity knows we've activated the failsafe. It's coming for us." "Coming? How?" Elias asked, panic rising in his chest. "It exists everywhere," Syra explained quickly. "In the stars, in the void, in every corner of space. Once it senses what we've done, it'll try to stop us, by any means necessary." Elias swallowed hard, gripping the armrests of his seat. "Then how do we fight something like that? We're just 2 people in a tiny ship." Syra turned to him, her silver eyes blazing with intensity. "We fight with what makes us human, with courage, hope, and trust. Elias, I need you to believe in me. Believe in *us*, because if we can break this bond, we might stand a chance." Her words struck a chord deep within him. Despite all the secrets, the lies and the danger, Elias realized one undeniable truth. Syra had risked everything to save him, not once, but twice. And now, standing on the brink of destruction, he owed her the same loyalty. "I believe you," he said finally, his voice firm despite the fear coursing through him. "Tell me what to do." Syra nodded, relief flickering across her face. She handed him a small device, a control unit linked to the ship's systems. "When I give the signal, activate this. It'll channel the energy from the sphere into the ship's engines. Together, we might be able to amplify the disruption and sever my connection to the entity completely." "And then what?" Elias asked. "And then," Syra hesitated, her expression grim. "We run, or die trying." Before Elias could respond, the ship shuddered again, harder this time. On the viewport, a swirling mass of light and shadow began to form, a manifestation of the entity itself. Its presence was overwhelming, radiating both beauty and terror. It pulsed and shifted, reaching toward them like an angry storm. "It's here," Syra whispered, her voice trembling. "Now or never, Elias." Taking a deep breath, Elias gripped the control unit tightly. "Do it." Syra raised the glowing sphere above her head, speaking words in a language Elias didn't understand. The air around them crackled with energy, and the entity roared in response, its form expanding rapidly. "Now!" Syra yelled. Elias pressed the button on the control unit, unleashing a torrent of energy that surged through the ship. The engines flared brightly, creating a blinding wave of light that engulfed the entity. For a moment, everything went silent. The hum of the engines, the roar of the entity, even the sound of their breathing. When the light faded, the entity was gone, or at least pushed back into the depths of space. But the cost was clear. The ship's systems were failing, smoke filling the cockpit as alarms blared incessantly. "We need to get out of here," Syra said weakly, collapsing into her seat. Elias rushed to her side, noticing how pale she looked. "Are you okay?" "I will be," she murmured, forcing a smile. "But we're not safe yet. There's one more thing we have to do." "What's that?" Elias asked, helping her steady herself. "We need to destroy the wormhole," Syra replied. "If we don't, the Accord and the entity will keep coming after us. Forever." Elias stared at her, realizing the weight of what she was asking. Closing the wormhole would mean cutting off their only way back to Earth. "Let's finish this," he said finally, determination hardening his voice. Together, they set a course for the wormhole, ready to make the ultimate sacrifice for each other and for the future. Would you like me to continue with Part 8 in the same style? Let me know.